Welcome to this tutorial about pivot tables in Excel. After watching this video, you will have learned what a pivot table is and how to use it. Also, you will know how to create one and how to customize the look of it. So what is a pivot table? A pivot table is a table that helps you in summarizing data. When you've got a large data set with many values, it helps you to easily group these values. To demonstrate how to create and use a pivot table, let's pretend we run a clothing store. Here we get the sales of the first weeks of the year. The columns show information about the color, the size, the salesperson, and the amount of sales. Now we can use this data to create a pivot table. Before creating a pivot table, it is very important to define what you would like to get out of the pivot table. Now the owner of the store might want to answer different questions. For example, which week is the best week regarding sales and who is my best sales employee? To answer the questions, we are now going to create the pivot table. To do this, we are first going to format this data as a table. We will see at the end that this has an advantage when we want to refresh the pivot table. To do this, we click on the data and we choose Format as Table. Now we are going to create a pivot table. We can do this by clicking on Summarize with Pivot Table. We can now choose to place it on a new worksheet or an existing worksheet. Now we choose the location. So on the right, Excel shows us different fields that are available for the pivot table. Below this, areas are shown in which the fields can be placed, such as filters, columns, rows, or values. As our question was, which week was the best week regarding sales, we take the week and put it into the row area. Then we put the sales into values. If you now look at the pivot table, we can see that week 2 was the best week regarding sales. To answer the second question, who the best salesperson is, we can do the same and put the salesperson into the rows area instead of weeks. We can do this by dragging. If we now want to go into more detail, we can also use the columns to see the split between the sizes. We can drag the size to columns. Lastly, we can add a filter to filter on the weeks we would like to see. We can also do this by dragging the week to the filters. For example, if we now select week 4, we can see that Kate was the best salesperson in week 4. Now let's assume that another week passed by, which was week 9. And we've got the sales data over here. We can simply copy it and paste it below the table. Now we click with our right mouse button on the pivot table and click refresh. Now it automatically updates all the data. For an improved look of the pivot table, we can go to the Design tab. We can do this by clicking on the pivot table and clicking on Design. Here we can change if we want to see subtotals at the bottom or at the top. We can also choose for grand totals, for rows and columns, or for rows or columns only. And we can also change the report layout. We can also choose to add blank rows after each item. Under pivot table styles, it is possible to also adjust the colors to improve the design of the chart. By clicking on this button, we can see all the types of designs. Hopefully you have learned what a pivot table is and how to use it in practice. If you would like to learn more about technology, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.